Well, welcome to the call, everyone. I welcome you to the Seasonal Eating, Transitioning to a Spring Diet lecture. In the next hour, I'm going to share some really inspiring insights around nutrition. In fact, the seasonal eating is one of the most exciting topics of nutrition that I like to share. And the reason is because there's so much conflicting information about nutrition. And if we expect to find one unified voice in the field of nutrition, we're going to be disappointed. But the truth is that the one thing that really does stand the test of time is the wisdom of nature. And when I'm working with people, my intention is to really tap people into the power of whole food and help people to create a healthier relationship with food, and also, most importantly, help people just eat naturally, go back to what nature intended. And when we learn about the seasonal eating principle, that's really what this teaches us to do, is just to go back to the rhythm of nature. And so what we're going to realize tonight as we go through this lecture is that a lot of it actually sounds like common sense. It just really makes sense. And when you tap into the wisdom of the seasonal shifts and understand how to transition your diet with every season, then you just become more of a natural eater. And really, when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, that's how we really would love to be eating, is just very naturally, very in tune with nature, but also just in tune with our body. And so many of you may have already noticed that probably, even though in Calgary we don't have the best transitional spring. I mean, this week it already felt a little bit like winter again. Today feels like spring again. But the point is that for me, because I've been doing this for probably 7 years now with the seasonal eating, probably by mid-May for me, I personally felt like I was ready to transition my diet. I felt like I wanted to move away from winter foods and start lightening my diet up. I was sort of craving just getting outside and being in fresh air. And so my hope is that you guys on the call have also been feeling that as well. And that's the cues that you want to sort of trust and be in tune with. Those are the cues that you want to, allow your body to guide you so that you can make the right changes every year. Now, if you haven't been in tune with those cues, don't worry about that, because next year when spring starts, or probably by mid-May, mid-March, end of March, you may start feeling what I've just explained. And so at least then next year you'll have that awareness to say, all right, I'm ready to transition into the spring way of eating. So for tonight, I'm going to teach you how to be aware of that so that you can use this principle every single spring, because the truth is this is the most important time of year to actually change your diet. And if we're not making these changes, we actually miss out on some of the greatest opportunities to balance our body for the entire year. So I really am glad that you have called in tonight and gifted this for yourself, an hour for yourself to really learn these principles. So I hope that many of you have got the notes in front of you, but if not, you can always download them afterwards. And we're going to go through the notes. I don't go through word by word, but certainly, I'll add in some pieces that aren't in there, so feel free to take notes as we go through. So as it says here, spring is here. It's time to cheer and shine like the sun. Come out and play. Dance your dance. This is nature's birthing season, the time of creation and development. All is restored with life at the beginning of spring. Now, if you want any resources on these principles of seasonal eating, Elson Hawes writes a great book called, and also the other person that I'll quote tonight is John Douillard. So the book by John Douillard is called The 3-Season Diet, and Elson Hawes writes a great book called Creating Health with the Seasons. So those are two really, really great books if you're wanting to read more about this. So why I teach seasonal eating is because there's real purpose for it. Basically what happens is that every seasonal shift, there is a purpose to what Mother Nature gives us. So at every single time of year, every season, there's specific foods that the body needs, that the body really depends on and relies on in order to stay balanced. So in spring, which we're going to focus on tonight, we really want to talk about a lot of the cleansing foods. All the foods that come out at this time of year are meant to cleanse our body from the long winter hibernation, where we've accumulated a lot of toxins, a lot of mucus in our body, and typically ate a lot more sugars, drank more alcohol, these sorts of things. So we need a lot of the cleansing food. Summer, we get all the cooling foods. Because of the heat of the summer, Mother Nature naturally gives us lots of leafy greens, lots of salads, and tons of fruit to really cool down the body so that we don't create too much heat in that time of year. In fall, we get building foods, so things like legumes and nuts and seeds. We start to crave more whole grain, and the purpose for that is because we need building foods to store energy for the long winter months to come. And in winter, we naturally eat more heating foods, more one-pot meals, chilies and soups and crock pots, all obviously to keep us warm throughout the cold winter months. So again, if you tap into each one of these seasonal shifts and eat the right foods at every season, you really provide your body with exactly what it needs to stay well. Another reason why we want to be eating seasonally is because it allows us to connect to something bigger than ourselves. Again, a lot of time when we're eating, we're not conscious of what we're putting in our bodies. We're relying on what the masses think we should do about food. We're stuck in the diet mentality. But when you eat with the seasons, you tap into something so much bigger, something so much more important. First of all, you tap into Mother Earth. You tap into nature. You realize that there's this higher power going on that really does govern what we should be eating versus what supermarkets or diet books tell us that we should be eating. We also start to realize that there's this perfection in what Mother Nature gives us at every season, and when you really tap into that, you realize that again that there's this grand order, there's this divinity that's going on that's really guiding what our food choices should be. We also tap into our environment, and that's important, especially because a lot of times now we're hearing about the raw food diet, and it's very important that we adapt to the environment that we live in. And in Calgary, especially because it's so cold and dry most of the year, we need to be eating more warming cooked food in fall and in winter. So the whole principle of the raw food diet doesn't necessarily work in our climate because if we're eating a lot of cold, dry food throughout the cold, dry season, we create more imbalance. So by tapping into what's meant to be eaten at every season, you give your body what it's meant to be eating for its own climate, and that's important. So, for example, the raw food diet works really well in sunny California all year long, but here in Calgary, it would pretty much create imbalance in most body types. And another thing that's important for us to tap into for the seasonal eating is the local farmers. Oftentimes when we go to the grocery stores, the big grocery stores, we don't realize the perfection of the food that's coming in because we can get any food we want any time of year. But when you go to the local farmers markets, when you shop at the health food stores, you start to realize that there are these specific special foods that come in only at certain times a year. So for example, one food that comes in only for just a few weeks out of the spring season, and the only time of year we see it is fiddleheads. And so when you're not shopping or looking for these things in, the health food stores and markets, you miss out on some of these opportunities to eat the most perfect foods at the right time of year. And finally, ourselves. What this means is that when you eat seasonally, it really does allow or sort of encourage you to listen to your body and let your body guide you on what it wants to eat in the given season of the given year. And that's really important too because, again, we don't listen. We don't trust our body's wisdom. But our bodies have so much wisdom. And when you're aware of this principle of seasonal eating, you really do start to sort of surrender to that and let that guide you. And I think that personally is the most beautiful way to eat intuitively, to trust, and to let the season and your body guide you with what it wants. And that's really a goal for, in my opinion, natural eating, healthy eating, soulful eating. Another important reason why we want to eat seasonally is to create variety in our diet. So many people eat the same thing for breakfast all year long. And if that's something that you do, I encourage you to think about shifting that because remember, at every 3 to 4 months as the seasons change, we have an opportunity to change our diet. We have an opportunity to bring new foods in, new fruits, new vegetables. And the more variety of food you bring into your diet, the more variety of nutrients you bring into your body throughout the year. So when you're looking at, well, how many vegetables and how many different kinds of vegetables have I eaten, instead of looking at it as a day-to-day thing, look at it through the course of your year. So get a greater perspective of what you put into your body every single year, throughout the year. And that helps you to realize, like, wow, I've really provided my body with a lot of different foods, a lot of different nutrients, a lot of variety. And the thing is, when you have variety, you don't get bored with your diet. You know, so many people come in and they tell me, oh, I'm so bored with what I'm eating. But if you think about the plethora of food and the variety of food that comes in at every season, it's pretty difficult to get bored. So it just encourages variety. It encourages us to do different things at different times of year, which will ultimately help to prevent cravings for a lot of people as well. Sometimes we start sugar cravings as seasons shift because we're not eating the right foods at that time of year. So it just allows us to stay more on the path of good eating most of the time. And finally, another reason why I think it's so important to understand these principles of seasonal eating is because it allows us to maintain balance throughout the year. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the session. But balance is key for wellness. Wellness cannot come without being balanced. And when you eat the right food at every time of year, you stay balanced, but you also prevent a lot of colds and a lot of flus that a lot of people get. So often at the biggest junctions or the transitions between some of the greatest seasons, we get sick. We see a lot of people around us get colds and flus, and what happens is because if we're not transitioning our food at the right time of year, you're not providing the body what it needs to be well. So by eating seasonally, and especially at this time of year, by putting in the right foods to detox your body, you can really prevent a lot of the most common colds and flus that so many people get. So this is a really, really important piece, because usually fall and usually spring, at the beginning of those seasons, and is when most people fall ill. And the reason is because a lot of people are eating their summer diet too long into fall as it starts to get cooler. And a lot of people are eating the heavy winter diet too long into spring, when we need to start lightening things up. So just by changing your diet, you allow balance and you stay well. So let's talk about where we're at. And again, I know sometimes it's difficult in Calgary because we never know when spring and winter is, when either of those are beginning or ending. But the truth is that spring really is here. And so what we want to do is we want to close the door on winter. And winter really is a time of hibernation. It's a time of conservation, of inner reflection. You know, we want to stay home more. We stay on our couch. We're usually more in tune with our families. We just want to be hibernational, really. And we naturally would want to be craving or eating heavier meals. So we typically crave heavier meats, like more steaks and red meats, even fattier chicken like dark meat versus white meat. The body typically wants more oils, more fats to keep us insulated and to prevent dryness, especially in Calgary when it's so cold and dry. So the fats really allow us for that inner lubrication to happen. We naturally eat more root vegetables in the winter time, so lots of squash and sweet potato and yam, because they all help to create insulation and warmth. Even craving oatmeal for breakfast, and even grain like brown rice, which is a little bit heavier, more dense than something like a wild rice, which is a bit lighter. We crave these heavier grains. And typically our desire for salads, for a lot of fresh fruit, is not really there. We typically want to crave more steamed vegetables, more soups, and again, really focusing on those one-pot, warming, yummy, comforting meals. So that's where we really ideally just come from. And if you haven't been eating like that, don't worry about it. You'll tap into that next winter. But that's really sort of what the body would have wanted to do to stay balanced. And typically, too, we needed more of this heavier food to keep us warm and insulated. And what would often happen in winter is that we typically gain a few extra pounds. So in winter, it's normal to gain 5 pounds. And those are good pounds. Those are pounds not to fret, not to worry about. They're pounds to welcome, because they're meant to really create our internal heat. They're our internal insulation. And the key is, the exciting thing is that when you're tapped into seasonal shifts, spring is the time where you can really burn those few extra pounds of weight. And if you eat the right food at spring, then what happens is those pounds come off very quickly, very easily, without having to do restrictive diets and calorie counting and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just this natural progression that happens, which I think is quite exciting. So now we've closed the door on winter and we're starting to open the door to spring. And spring is now the time for renewal, for rejuvenation and new beginnings. We're naturally more outward. We want to just be expansive. We start wanting to be a bit more social and come out, awaken from that hibernation that we've just been in. It's the cleansing and the healing season. So not only are we wanting to cleanse and heal our body, but I know for me personally, it's just I want to clean my house. I want to open up the windows and let the fresh air in. Just sort of straighten things up, get rid of things. This is the time of year where we usually do our big spring cleaning of our homes, of our garages, our closets. So there's just this whole desire to just sort of awaken and bring freshness and newness into our life. And outside, the ground is starting to sprout. I started to see some tulips sprouting up. The buds are awakening. Birds are chirping. I actually even remember it was mid-March, and all of a sudden I heard the birds start chirping outside of my window first thing in the morning. And it's like, yes, spring is here. And the sun is shining, especially today. It's absolutely beautiful. And so we're going to have a beautiful week. And we even did have a really nice start to our spring. So it is here. And naturally, we just want to be outside and start walking and jogging outside at this time of year. And the hope is that you should notice that your cravings have been changing, that you don't feel like eating heavier food anymore, that almost like you're really craving just salads. About a month ago for me, I really started to want refreshing taste, so I started adding lemon into my water, liquid chlorophyll into my water, which we'll talk about later. But just the whole desire to just eat fresh, light, leaner foods came to me because I'm quite in tune with this. But my hope is that you started to notice that as well. And if you haven't noticed it, then it's important to encourage your body to move in the direction of those things, of those foods. So another principle to get into before we look at the most balancing foods for spring is this whole notion of the build and destroy cycle. So what we know is that there is a universal law called the law of balance. And basically what that balance means is that everything in the universe has a positive and negative energy. And that positive and negative energy comes in a packet. It needs to come together to create the balance. And so what happens is that in our year, we have a balance of positive and negative energy. So basically what this means is from fall to winter, we're more in the negative energy. We're more in what we call this destructive cycle. If you think about nature outside, if you think in fall and winter, all the leaves have fallen. All the flowers have sort of died down. Everything is colder. The trees are shrunken in. And then within ourselves as well, we start to become a little bit more hibernational. We move inward. We move more inward to our homes. And so everything sort of starts to go into what we call this sort of death cycle or destruction cycle. And many people experience that as well. A lot of people feel depressed. During winter time, we often don't exercise as much. It's very easy for a lot of people to eat more sugar, those sorts of things. But what I want you to realize is that is just nature's way of having this law of balance. We need to go through that little bit of death or destruction cycle, because what happens is that in the second part of the year, where we're beginning that now, we go into a rebuild, a life cycle. So spring to summer is all about rebuilding the body, rebuilding in nature. So just like everything is starting to sprout out of the ground now, everything will start to turn green. All the buds will start to come out and the trees will blossom. There's this life cycle. And again, within ourselves, we start to feel lighter. We start to feel happier because the sun is out. And so all I'm trying to teach you here is that if you're in tune with these natural rhythms, with this principle of life-death cycle of build and destroy, then you don't sort of get hard on yourself in the fall and winter when maybe your diet wasn't as great, when your exercise wasn't up to par, when maybe you weren't feeling as optimum as you could. Just surrender to that and know that now we're in this building phase where we start to get to the peak of where we want to be. So really, at the end of winter, and we see this so often in Calgary, by January, February, people in Calgary are a little miserable. We're just done with winter. We're just sort of craving that sunshine. And so at the very end of winter, we're sort of at the peak of our destruction phase. And at the very end of summer, we're at the peak of our rebuild cycle, and it will just all happen again into the next year. So all I encourage you to do is surrender to those phases and just know that they're both meant to be there to serve a purpose, to serve the purpose of balance. And remember, wellness does not come without balance. And when you try to achieve balance, then that's going to help to prevent you from trying to achieve perfection, meaning that you don't get hard on yourself when your diet's not great in the winter or when you're feeling down in the dumps in the winter. Just surrender and go with the flow, just knowing that spring and summer is always around the corner and light gets brighter at those times of year, at that time of year. So it's just a different principle, something to think about in a different way. So where does this principle of seasonal eating come from? It really comes from Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is one of the things that I teach in my nutrition program. It's an ancient form of East Indian healing. It's one of our oldest healing systems, and the whole premise with Ayurveda is that in order for the body to be well, I've said this before, it must be in a state of balance. And so what Ayurveda does is that it uses the wisdom of nature to teach us how to balance the body. It uses the wisdom of nature to explain what's happening within the seasons and what's happening within our body. So this is the season that we call the Kapha season. The Kapha season, what that means is that in Ayurveda there's 3 different body types or seasonal types. And the Kapha season is the springtime quality. And what that means is that the Kapha body or the Kapha season is made up of water and earth. And if you think of the qualities of water and earth, they're quite damp, quite moist, earthy, watery. So basically, if you think about the ground at springtime, it's quite damp, right, as it rains. And even from all the snow, the ground is mucky, it's moist, just very watery outside. It's a little dry in Calgary right now, but typically very watery as all the snow starts to melt. So what happens then is that if we are in this season of moistness, of dampness, of wateriness, what Mother Nature does is give us the specific foods to counter those qualities. So what we start eating is and are provided with is foods that actually help to dry up all that moist and dampness. And if you even think about your terrain within your body, at the end of winter, we have a lot of mucus. We have a lot of moisture because we've been eating more damp food and heavy food. We've been eating more sugar, which creates mucus. And so basically what we need is these very specific light and dry foods to help sop up all that wetness and dampness so that we create the balance. So basically what we're trying to do here is offer the body the opposite of what it is. Or if you're in the season of dampness, you want to use the foods that create dryness. And without even having to think about that too much, that's exactly what Mother Nature gives us without even having to ask for it. It's just there. The key is just to tap into those foods so that you give your body what it needs. So the very specific tastes at springtime are pungent tastes, because pungent comes from a lot of garlic and onion, radish and chilies, the hot spicy things. Pungent tastes really help to stimulate the metabolic process or the metabolic fire in the body. The bitter tastes, which come from a lot of your leafy bitter greens that come out at this time of year, help to really sop up all the dampness and wateriness within the body. And they also help to cleanse and detox the liver. And the astringent taste, astringent means sort of leaving a dry taste on your tongue. So specific examples are like beans. Drinking even tea leaves that tanniny, dry taste on the tongue. Certain herbs do that as well. Even a food like cranberry is a bit astringent. So basically, if we put these sorts of foods in the diet, and I'm going to show you all of them specifically throughout this lecture, but if we put the pungent, the bitter, the astringent taste in the body, then what we're doing is we're giving the body exactly what it needs to dry everything up, detox, and get our metabolic fire moving again. The foods we want to try to avoid most of the time at this time of year is sweet taste, so a lot of sugar, a lot of oils, sour tastes, because sour creates a lot of wetness. So if you think about eating sour food, your mouth almost puckers up, creating a lot of hydration. So that's what we want to avoid. And salt. Salt also creates a lot of moisture within the body as well. And so we want to avoid these foods as much as possible. So basically, I won't get into the body types too much tonight, but there are certain body types who naturally are kapha types. And so if you are aware of Ayurveda, this is the season that kapha really needs to tap into so they can detox their body well. But in general, for all of us, we all want to be eating the kapha way at this time of year. We want to pacify the kapha principles with the kapha quality foods. And so that's what we're going to go into next. So when we're talking about spring food, or seasonal foods, what I should say is there's no bad food when we're talking about whole food. There's just more balancing foods. So the ones that I'm going to share with you tonight are the ones that are really going to create the balance that we're looking for at this time of year. So it doesn't mean if you don't like them, you don't have to have them, or if there's certain foods you're eating that aren't on these lists that you shouldn't be eating them. Just remember, you want to put in the most balancing foods most of the time. And this is where you may even want to take that 80-20 rule. So if you're building your diet around 80% of these most balancing foods, you'll do wonders for your body. And I always say, too, remember that the slightest eliminations, additions, and adjustments to your diet really do make the most tremendous difference in how you feel. So even if you just put in some of these principles, some of these foods, that will help you a lot. You know, every food is a powerful packet of energy that offers the body great wisdom. And so don't feel like if you can't implement all of these things that you're failing the body. Think about more celebrating the things that you can put in. And as we go through these next slides, what you may want to do is actually just make a star or make little notes for yourself of the foods that you would really love to start putting in over the spring season. And so by the end of the call, that you have little mini goals for yourself of what you want to focus on. So the goal of spring is to cleanse the excess fat and protein of a long, low metabolic winter and to re-stimulate the body to burn fat as fuel throughout the spring and summer. This re-stimulation naturally detoxifies the extra proteins and carbohydrates stored in the fat cells. So these are really, really important, again, foods to put in so that we can get this cleansing action happening. So we begin with protein, and just for those of you who have not worked with me that are on the call tonight, remember that you want to have protein in at every meal. That will keep your energy high, it will keep you feeling satisfied and satiated, and it will give your body the building blocks it needs for overall health. Now in spring, we typically want lighter, leaner proteins. And so the idea is, again, remember in winter we needed the fattier stuff to keep us warm, but now in spring we want to get rid of the heavier, fattier stuff as much as possible and move into lightness. So even when you're eating your eggs are great all year long, but how you cook your eggs might change now for spring. You might want to do them a little bit drier or lighter. So for example, fried eggs or scrambled eggs, even omelets can be a little bit more oily, a little bit heavier. So a really great way to eat your eggs is hard-boiled or poached. Now, if you don't like them that way, you still prefer scrambled or fried, then by all means eat them that way. But just again, remember the principle is to lighten and dry things up. If you like dark poultry, this is the time of year where you might want to start looking into more chicken breast and turkey breast because these lighter, leaner meats will serve better. Duck and lamb, although they are heavier meats, they actually are very seasonal at this time of year, right? Spring is the best time to eat lamb. So these are good foods to put in. You may even notice if you eat a lot of fish that the taste of your fish is starting to change or the craving for your fish is starting to change. So for me, in winter, I typically crave a lot of wild salmon. But now as we go into the spring season, I kind of feel like whiter fish, so sole and flounder. And even if you think about summertime, by the way, summer is just an extension of spring. We just continue to do more of what we're doing in spring. But in summer, halibut is, very, very common to eat. Pickerel is very common to eat. So these lighter fish start to come in. Legumes are also excellent because they offer the astringent taste that the body's looking for. So a nice way to use legumes, if you're not used to or comfortable doing it, is just to buy cans of organic beans at the grocery store. rinse them off really well, and just start adding them to salads. You can roast chickpeas in the oven with a little bit of seasoning on them, and that's a really nice snack. Or you'll also see some of the things like we still want to do soups at this time of year, so doing lentil soups, black bean soup, anything like that's really nice. So it's a really good time of year to use legumes. We naturally crave less red meat. It doesn't mean you're not going to eat any red meat, but the desire for it might not be there as much. And this is also the time of year to not really go heavy on dairy. Dairy can create a lot of mucus qualities within the body. And so if we're trying to get rid of the mucus, if we're trying to lighten the body up, it's a good time of year to actually sort of minimize your dairy. If you wanted to do a little bit of yogurt, that's okay, but you don't really want to do a lot of cheeses and a lot of milk at this time of year. If you really love dairy and aren't wanting to get rid of it, in Ayurveda they say if you do a little bit of a grating of fresh ginger in your milk, for example, that can help to break up the catarrh, the mucus in the body, or even just a splash of turmeric in your yogurt. Those sorts of things can help. But I encourage you, if you can, start to reduce the dairy to help reduce the mucus in the body. So again, these are the most balancing proteins for spring. Doesn't mean you can't eat any other proteins, but these ones work really, really nicely at this time of year. And the hope is that these are the things that you're kind of craving or looking for anyway. Now, the fats. The fats are the next macronutrient, and typically what I teach in my foundation, for those of you who work with me, you know this, you're looking for about 3 to 4 very small servings of good fats a day. And the fats, remember, help to really lubricate the body. They feed the brain. They produce hormones. They balance our blood sugars, our insulin. So there's so many reasons to be eating good fat, and they don't make us fat. But in the spring principles, what we need to understand is that if we've just come from winter and we've naturally eaten more heavier oils, we don't need to sort of go heavy on our oil in spring. So we just want to reduce the amount that we're using. We don't want to go no fat, but we just want to sort of lighten up. And the reason is because every season there's specific organs that need to be supported. And the liver and the gallbladder are the 2 organs that are supported in spring. And if we're eating too many oils, too many fats at this time of year, it prevents the liver and the gallbladder from doing their proper detoxification. So it's really a good thing to just lighten up. So the best oils at this time of year, the most balancing ones, are a little bit of ghee, which means clarified butter. And all that means is just the milk solids have been removed from the butter. So it's just a bit lighter than using your regular butter. But by all means, if you're not used to clarified butter, if you don't make it, you can buy it at Superstore. You can buy it at Planet Organic or in Indian grocery stores. But if you don't want to go there, certainly just using a little bit of butter is still fine. Flax oil and hemp oil are also good choices at this time of year, really good additions to salad dressings. You can't cook and heat with these oils, but they are good to have, to drizzle on asparagus, for example, or as I said, to put as a salad dressing. Now, nuts and seeds are also excellent fats. They provide us with great oil. But in wintertime, nuts are a little bit more desired because they're heavier and they're oilier, whereas now in spring and as we go into summer in a few months, we're going to want to lighten that up. And so this is where seeds serve us better. So now snacking on sunflower or pumpkin seeds or flax and hemp seeds work really well in the diet. If you still like nuts, you go for almonds, go for filberts. They're just a little bit lighter than something like a macadamia nut or something like a pecan or a walnut, which have a little bit more density of oil. So the idea is just lighter and drier. Try to reduce the heavier and moist fats. So it doesn't mean you don't want to use olive oil or coconut oil or avocado and nuts. It's just that if you do, use less of what you normally would. So if you typically use a tablespoon of olive oil on a salad, maybe you do half of that now for spring. Or if you've eaten half of an avocado as a snack, maybe you do about a quarter for spring. So it's just lightening it up a little bit, but as I said, never going without your fats, just sort of reducing the amount for spring. Now, in fall and winter, we typically crave grain because grains sort of help to insulate us. But in spring and summer, we actually want to start limiting our grains. Now, I typically don't promote a lot of heavy emphasis on grain for most people. typically on average, and I teach this in the foundation when you work with me, but most men on average need 1 cup a day. Most women need approximately a half a cup a day. That varies for everybody individually, but that's a general rule of thumb. So in spring, what you might find is that you're down to that 1 small serving a day, but sometimes you might even find that you don't even go there every day. So if you don't desire the grain, don't feel you have to force it in. And this will be especially more so in summer when we get more of our carbohydrates from all the fruits that we eat. So the desire to eat a lot of grain in summer might not be there, but just remember you'll bring it back a little bit more heavier in fall and winter. So the reason for the grains needing to be limited is because they offer those spring qualities. They're typically damp, they're moist, they're heavy. So think about pieces of bread. It's a moist food. Even baked goods, they're very moist and oily. Something like brown rice is very damp and moist and heavy. So what we're trying to do is that if we eat grain, we want to eat the lighter and the drier ones. So those are specifically amaranth. Buckwheat is very light and dry. Millet is good. Oats are good, and this is where you could do things like granola. And in my book, if you have a copy of my book, there's under the summer recipes, actually, there's Amy's homemade granola. So there's something there that you could do with dried oats. Quinoa is great. It's very light and dry. And wild rice, again, a much better choice than something like a brown rice, because brown rice is very heavy and moist and warming for fall and winter. But now for wild rice, it's just a bit more refreshing. And if you do want to use a cracker, something like a rye Vita cracker, because it's just very, very pure. It's just whole rye meal. So, that would be a good choice. But basically you want to try to avoid grains that contain a lot of gluten in them. So a lot of people in general have gluten intolerance and aren't aware of it. Most people are intolerant to wheat. And so this is a good time of year. If you haven't tried a trial elimination on gluten, you may want to try it for spring. It's a nice way to drop weight. It's a nice way to get rid of gas and bloating and mucus in general. But basically wheat, rye, barley, spelt, and kamut, these are the common gluten grains. And basically, if you get rid of these, most of the time, you'll find that you really, really help to clean out your body, because these are very gummy grains. In fact, even if you think about cooked oats, think about the pot of oatmeal once you've cooked it. It's very sticky. It's very gummy. And that's sort of what's going on in your intestines, right? And so we're really wanting to, it's good for winter. We want that to stick to our bones in winter, stick to our gut in winter, but we don't necessarily want that for spring. We want to clear that stuff out of us. So better, again, to focus on these other grains to help to do that. And if you do want to do bread, just try to avoid a lot of yeasted bread, because yeast can create more mucus as well in the intestines. So a good option, for example, is you can buy manna bread at the health food stores. You can also buy a bread, it's by Lakeview Bakery, but the health food stores carry it. It's called the sourdough spelt bread. So although spelt, it is a gluten grain, it's got very minimal gluten compared to wheat, but there's no yeast in it and there's no sugar in it. And even if you just generally you go to your health food store, there's usually quite a few varieties of yeast-free bread that you can look for. So it doesn't mean you have to go without bread, but just maybe choosing different bread at this time of year is wise. So it's a hard principle for a lot of people because we're so used to eating a lot of grain. But again, if you're really wanting to think about weight loss and lightening up the body and detoxing the body, this is a really good opportunity to reduce your grain to 1 serving a day and go into these lighter, drier grains and trying to watch your wheat intake. Now, for fruit for spring, it's not really quite time of year yet to really go heavy on spring. That's what summer is for. That's where Mother Nature gives us all the cooling fruits to create our balance. But in spring, it's just not quite time. The best fruits at this time of year are things like dried fruit, and not the really heavy sticky ones like figs and dates, but typically the real dry ones like a dried mango, dried apple, dried raisins. And these are nice additions to add to your salads. They're also really nice as snacks with your seeds. So those would be good options for you to put them in. I think the best place to buy your dried fruits is at the health food stores, where you're not going to see sugar added to them and where you're not going to see things like sulfites, preservatives added to them as well. Lemon and lime, definitely want to be putting these in at this time of year. Lemon is one of the best things you can put in your water to help detox the liver. So such a very easy thing to add in. You know, squeeze lemon on your salad, squeeze it onto your fish, put it in wherever it so calls you. You know, even doing some carbonated water or some Perrier Pellegrino with some lime lemon in it is a really nice thing to do for spring. Other fruits that are very balancing for spring are apples. Blueberries, they're starting to come out more at the end of spring. Grapefruits, actually, if you eat grapefruit right now, it's so good. You know, personally, I start craving grapefruit all spring. Lemon and lime we talked about. Papaya, pears. Pomegranate's on this list, but we don't really get pomegranate that heavily right now. It usually comes in more in the fall, so that just probably depends where you're living. But strawberries, we're going to start to notice that they are actually, again, starting to be more plentiful, taste better. So you'll just notice that your taste for fruits start to change. You start to crave things a little bit differently than what you were doing in fall and winter when basically we were eating apples, pears, and oranges. So we open the door up to a few new ones. And typically you're aiming for about 2 to 3 fruits a day. And come summertime, you'll probably up that easily to about 4 to 5 fruits a day. So for vegetables, this is the time of year to love and embrace your vegetables. It's absolutely critical that they come in because this is where the most balancing tastes, the most balancing and helpful, powerful foods come into the diet. So we naturally would crave salads, sprouts, more leafy greens at this time of year. And again, the desire for a lot of root vegetables and cooked and steamed vegetables starts to go out a little bit. You know, we still want to have warming vegetables in the spring, especially in Calgary when it can fluctuate so much to between snow and cold, rainy days. So it's still okay to do lightly stir-fried veggies. It's still okay to do soups and things like that. But you don't want to necessarily be doing all raw vegetables right now or all cooked vegetables. You want a good balance at this time of year. Also, you don't want a lot of vegetables in the diet that create a lot of wetness and a lot of cool principles. So, for example, zucchini and cucumber, they're more summer fruits because they're very cooling. So you might want to hold off on those. And really right now it's pretty hard to find nice tasting cucumber. Really wet foods like tomatoes, you may want to sort of reduce a little bit. It doesn't mean you never have a tomato, but the whole principle is that they're just very wet. And so we're better to go into the bitter veggies. So ideally 3 to 4 cups of veggies a day. Another way to look at that is how many different vegetables do you bring into your diet every day. So if you have a salad, you might have 4 veggies in there, and then maybe you have a couple steamed vegetables at night. Maybe you stir-fried something with garlic. So every little vegetable you bring in, that counts. So try to count that, aim for 7 veggies every day for the spring and summer season, and you'll thrive. You'll do really, really well. Now, there's specific families of vegetables that are so important to bring in. So first of all, it's the bitter greens. And remember, these are meant to support liver detoxification. And you'll see that some of these only come out at this time of year. So dandelion greens you can start to see in the health food stores. As I said, the fiddleheads usually only come out for about 3 weeks out of the whole year. And even in the spring mixes, the salad greens that are out, a lot of radicchio and arugula starts growing. So really bring these in a lot more plentifully right now. And these cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all of that starts to come in much more plentifully too. The pungent vegetables, as I said earlier, really help to increase your metabolic fire. So the onions, the garlics, radishes. I know for me, I never eat radish. I don't really like it, but sometimes near the end of spring, I really start craving radish, and I put that in my salads. Even just eat them fresh, and you can see beautiful radishes, beautiful onions in the farmers markets at this time of year as well. But really what they do, again, is they increase the metabolic fire and the digestive strength, which helps to burn our body fat that we've accumulated in wintertime. The diuretic vegetables are the ones that really help to pull out all that excess dampness and moisture within our body. So it's a really nice thing to do to very simply add things like parsley and cilantro, watercress to your salads. Lots more celery now at this time of year. So in your salads, you want to get creative and start putting in a lot of these different veggies, and that will really provide your body with exactly what it needs. And chlorophyll-rich vegetables. So remember, chlorophyll is the pigment in plants that oxygenates the plants. So it will also oxygenate our own body. It purifies our blood. And the chlorophyll also really helps to internally cleanse our body. It's really refreshing to the body. It creates more of a deodorizing effect, a fertilizing effect within the system when we eat a lot of these leafy greens. Wheatgrass, for example, and one of the great ways to do wheatgrass is that you can just stop at Booster Juice or Jugo Juice and do a shot of wheatgrass. Or you can buy frozen wheatgrass at the health food store. They come in little ounce serving sizes that you can get, and you can do a shot of wheatgrass every day at home without having to juice it yourself. A lot of people at this time of year will also buy greens, the powdered greens that you can get at the health food stores more as a supplement, and you can put those into protein shakes or just mix them in water. And another really easy thing to do is you can buy liquid chlorophyll at the health food store, and very simply you just put a tablespoon in your water a couple times a day, and your water will be very rich in green color, but it has a minty taste. It's very refreshing and a nice way to clean the body very naturally. So very easy things that you can add in to support this cleaning desire that we're looking for. So from now until the end of summer, we are going to go big on salads. So I really encourage you to get creative, do different things with your salads, because the last thing you want to do is say that I'm bored with salad, or I hate salad, or I don't like making salad. You really want to love these salads, because this is where all of these powerful foods are going to come in. And this is really going to be how you can serve your body in so many ways. So in your notes, I have given you 4 different salad ideas, and again, all they're doing is just pulling in the right vegetables. They're pulling in the most balancing proteins and even the most balancing oils for your dressings, which is an important thing to do. So get really creative and enjoy your salads. Also for soups, I have incorporated in your notes some of the soups that you can find in my cookbook or my book. And by the way, you can, if you don't have those, you will receive those when you do work with me. But if you're not going to come in and work with me and you're on the call tonight, you can also get these online on my website at amybondar.com. But you don't have to just stick to these soups. There's many different soups you can use. But again, the principles of choosing the right vegetables, the right proteins at this time of year. So lentil soups, for example, is a good option. So I would encourage you to have soup within your freezer. So on cool, wet days, you still may want to pull out a thing of soup and heat it on your stovetop and have that. Because sometimes in spring there's still those days where it does get a little cold, where you don't really feel like a raw salad. So you want to be still able to do some stir fries and soups if possible. By the way, as a side note, there's a great company called Spoon Fed Soup in Calgary. They do all whole food soups, a lot of organic ingredients as well, and they actually deliver to your door or to your workplace. So you can do a Google on that, Spoon Fed Soup. I think it's .ca, or just Google it, and you may want to check that out if you don't make your own soups. Also, the Calgary Farmers Market has a great little soup area that you can, buy some soups that are pre-made. Now, other great foods to bring in at this time of year are our spices, our herbs, and our roots. It's really important. We don't think about how powerful these little foods can be, but they are very powerful and really do provide us with the right principles that we're looking for at this time of year. So basically, really increase your spices and herbs. Get creative with them. Experiment with them if you're not used to using them. All are really great with the exception of a lot of salt. I still like to use a little sea salt all year long, but you just don't want to do a lot of salt at this time of year because, again, it will enhance the moistness within the body. So I've listed things like anise and basil, bay leaves, black pepper. Again, a lot of the pungent stuff now like cayenne and ginger and garlic are going to be really, really important. Any of the greens like rosemary, oregano. So really just do anything. And again, adding these to salads, putting them on your seasonings for your proteins like chicken, on your fish. Very, very simple to do. Also, at this time of year, it's a nice opportunity to change the kind of tea that you've been drinking. So if you drink the same tea every year or every day, basically start to get some new ideas. And for example, you can see here there's the cardamom, chicory, cinnamon, cloves, Well, all of these can be found in chai tea. So chai is a great thing to drink at this time of year. Not the syrup chai from Starbucks, but just regular chai tea bags. Also at the health food store, you can buy dandelion tea, which is really good for your liver. The best thing to do is just buy some fresh ginger root at the grocery store. Take about an inch piece of ginger and peel it and slice it up, chop it up, and put it into some boiling water and just steep it with some lemon. And that's a great way to cleanse the body and rejuvenate the body as well. Things like strawberry leaf tea, all of these are really good. But again, most of them can be found at the health food store. Finally, in this category is the mucus-breaking bitter roots. Things like garlic, things like onion. Some people will supplement with echinacea. Another thing you can do is burdock root and chicory root, which you can get in bulk at Community Natural Foods, and you can just steep those roots as teas and drink those. So again, things that you might not be familiar with, but quite easy things that you can add into your diet if that so calls you. So why we want these breaking bitter roots is because they actually really help to strengthen the liver and purify the blood. And so that's a really, really key piece. So during the spring, as the ground softens and plants push up out of the soil, our bodies soften by holding on to more water. And you might find that actually by the end of winter, you kind of feel like you're holding on to a little bit more jiggly weight, a little bit more water moisture weight in the body. And that's often what those 5 pounds are. They're not necessarily pure body fat. Oftentimes it's just excess moisture, excess water within the system. So the body rehydrates and the excess fluid flush it of toxins. These toxins often head toward the liver to be processed, but if the bitter greens, if the roots, if the rhizomes are not taken in at this time of year, the liver can get overwhelmed and inefficiently deal with the seasonal cleaning that it's meant to be doing. So again, just reiterating the fact of how important these specific foods are that we bring in, and these are exactly what Mother Nature provides us. We just have to tap in and be conscious of those foods. Bitter greens and roots will scrape the mucus off the intestines and clean the blood while helping the liver do its big spring cleaning job. These next little few lines here where it says, you have only to look about you to notice the abundance of bright green foliage lining the countryside in spring. Well, we don't see that in Calgary, but the principle at least is there. But the point is that, again, we want these specific foods to clean our system. So I provided you a couple days of a example of what a spring diet might look like in spring. So upon waking, a great thing to do is just start your day with some water and lemon. It doesn't have to be hot water. It could just be regular room temperature water with some lemon. That will get the liver moving and will help to get the bowels moving as well. So breakfast, you might do some poached eggs over a piece of your yeast-free bread, and toast the bread as well. Always toast it because that will be a bit drier than just like a fresh piece of bread. And I encourage you to add some green into your breakfast at springtime. So what I often do in spring is I just buy some organic alfalfa sprouts and some pea shoots, and I'll just put a little bit of sprouts and pea shoots on my toast and then put the eggs on top, and it's a really nice, refreshing breakfast. I also have a vegetable juice here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Mid-morning snack, you could do dried fruit and some pumpkin seeds. For lunch, a nice, beautiful salad with the right kinds of veg, protein, and oil. In the afternoon, maybe some cut-up vegetables with hummus, chickpea dip. And then dinner, maybe you do a piece of fish, some broccoli with a little bit of ghee on top or butter on top, and stir-fry some bitter green like Swiss chard and kale, and add those garlic and ginger, the rhizomes in there to help purify the body. And then for evening, maybe a cup of dandelion tea. So my hope is that sounds appealing to you, that it's like, yes, that's kind of what my body's craving. It's what's really desirable. It's sounding what you should be having at this time of year. And so my hope is that sounds good to you. Another day is that you can start your day with a fresh vegetable juice. So if you juice, this is a great thing to do. If you don't have a juicer, this is where you can maybe buy the frozen wheatgrass that I talked about and just have a shot of wheatgrass. Maybe you do a little bit of yogurt with some ginger, hemp seeds, strawberries, or at the health food stores, you can buy a cereal called Chia Goodness. All it is, it's made with buckwheat, chia seeds, and hemp seeds, so you're getting the right grain and the right seeds in, and then you just sort of put some boiling water on that, and then you can add a little bit of fresh fruit with it, and it's a nice little cereal, healthy cereal. In the mid-morning, maybe a hard-boiled egg and have a little piece of parsley or cilantro with that. For lunch, a nice lentil soup and veggies with a good dip. Chai tea and almonds as a snack. And then dinner, maybe chicken and a spring vegetable stir fry over some millet or over some quinoa or over some wild rice. And in the evening, into some ginger tea. And then throughout the day, you can drink your water with lemon, or you could drink water with the chlorophyll, different kinds of teas that we've talked about. And the third day, again, starting the day with water and lemon. You may want to do a protein shake where you add your greens in, the right kind of berries, some flaxseed, a juice or a wheatgrass as a snack, maybe soup and chicken breast for lunch, strawberry and seeds for afternoon, and something like a vegetarian chili, which is in my book. There's a great spring recipe in my book, so you could do that, and tea and grapefruit for dessert. So these are just options. You don't have to stick to this if you don't want to. You can certainly play around with it. But again, it's just pulling the foods that we've just talked about and building it into a very balanced day with the right amount of protein, the right amount of good fats, and the right amount of carbohydrate coming through veg, fruit, and a little grain. So I encourage you to sort of work around that, follow it, or change it up so that it suits you. So that's the spring food. Now let's talk about spring cleaning, because this is a really, really key piece at this time of year. And there's so many myths, and philosophies and different opinions about how to detox and cleanse the body. And you might even hear a lot of people talking around you now about, what cleanse they're doing, or are they going to do fasts or the master cleanse and all this kind of stuff. So what we do know is that spring is the most important time to detox the body. So out of all the time of year, this is the time to do it. So if you like to do cleanses, this is the time that you really want to tap into that. I don't really recommend doing it in the winter time. Winter is all about conserving our energy, and in spring it's important to sort of, basically in winter we don't want to use up our energy for a cleanse. So that's why it's better to do it in spring. Again, the purpose is to clear away the mucus and the toxicity that we've accumulated over winter. And basically, as I said before as well, that every season has a different organ that needs to be supported. And so what we're supporting right now is the liver and the gallbladder. And so if you're going to do a cleanse, where you go buy one at a health food store, these are the organs you're looking for. So you don't necessarily need to do a stomach cleanse, although it wouldn't be a bad thing, but it's not about just an intestinal cleanse. You really want to do a liver and gallbladder cleanse. And the truth is, with cleansing anyway, whenever you buy a cleanse, or even when you're doing it through diet, you always want to make sure that your liver is fully operating first, because if you're not getting your liver to detox, if the liver is sort of backed up and not detoxing properly, then all you're going to do is just really accumulate the toxins that you'll stir up when you do these cleanses, and you'll feel terrible. So that's why a lot of people will do a cleanse and feel awful, because what's happening is their elimination pathways, the liver and the intestines, are not working. They're not flowing well. So if you do a cleanse, you want to always make sure that it supports the liver first. You want to open up the liver first so that you can move things out. So in my opinion, you don't have to fast in order to get a real great cleanse happening. In my opinion, I really, really believe that it's much more effective, much more efficient to do a cleanse through food, meaning take all of the food that Mother Nature gives us in spring, all of these perfect cleansing foods, and eat them the entire spring season. That will give you the healthiest way to cleanse. You can always jumpstart your body. You can always buy a cleanse at the health food store, and there's many out there. Just going to places like Vitamins First or Community Natural Foods, Planet Organic, and just ask them which cleanses they recommend. There's lots out there, so if you want to jumpstart, you can with a cleanse. But what I find is that a lot of people will do a cleanse, and then they'll just go back to poor eating or go back to eating winter food or a lot of sugar. So I say if you take the right food in 3 to 4 months out of the year, then basically you're going to give your body way more of a detox than you will within just 1 week of a herbal cleanse, for example. Also, another thing is that a lot of people will starve themselves or do full-on food fasts in order to do a cleanse. And what I find is that creates a lot of stress in the body, and especially certain body types don't do well without food. So I wouldn't encourage doing full fasts. And the other thing is that a lot of people will do fasts and hard cleanses when they're still working and having a busy, stressful lifestyle. Cleansing takes a lot of energy, and it can be very stressful on the system. So if you're going to do an intense cleanse, then you really want to do it at like a retreat or a spa, or do it over a time when you have time off of work, because you can't function and pick up your kids and go to the gym and have your high-stress life and a fast-paced living when you're doing a cleanse. It's just going to counter what you're trying to achieve. And when you're under stress doing a cleanse, and when you're under stress restricting your food, you actually slow your metabolic processes down, and you actually accumulate, you store more body fat. So it kind of goes against the whole principle of what you're trying to achieve anyway. So I just say, eat your spring food over the course of the spring season, and that will be the best thing that you can do. But as I said, if you would like to do a cleanse, then just do a very simple 1-week cleanse, like a natural herbal cleanse, something you can pick up at the health food store that supports the liver, and that's fine as well. So here's a little bit of very basic, simple things that you can do to support your body. So these are sort of on top of the foods that we've just talked about. But as I've said before, the liquid chlorophyll in your water, so simple. The frozen wheatgrass, very simple to add in. The water with lemon. Drinking these specific teas that really cleanse the liver and the gallbladder. Some people even eat the dandelions from their garden. If that suits you, you can do that, or you could just buy dandelion greens at the health food store and eat those regularly. If you're looking to supplement, milk thistle is a great liver-supporting herb, so that's a good one to put in at springtime. Garlic is a really good supplement as well at this time of year. Another good supplement, if you want to go that route, if you don't want to just do it through food, is minerals. So there's some mineral matrix, it's called, or Capra Mineral Whey that you can get at the health food store. And the minerals just really help to create alkalinity in the body. They help to flush out the acids, and that's a really important thing at this time of year. Externally, you could do things for your body to support cleansing and reawakening, so things like exfoliation, so skin brushing, reflexology, massage is a really good way to move things out of the system. Even doing, it's not here in your notes, but even doing something like a bath with Epsom salts. The Epsom salts help to detox the body and create more alkalinity as well. Some people go to the extent of doing things like colonics, so hydrocolon therapy, which is, not for everybody. It's not what everyone desires, but it is a really good thing to do as well, especially if you feel you've tended to constipation over the winter. Really will help to flush your bowels. And another thing you can do is the neti pot, which you can get at the health food stores as well. A very easy nasal flushing. You just do a saline solution through your nostrils, and it really just helps to get rid of any excess mucus. So this is important for people who feel like they always have congestion, sinus congestion, runny nose, colds, that kind of thing. It's just a nice way to clear out the debris within the nasal passageways. So you may choose one of these, you may choose none of these, but if any call you, then certainly go into doing these because they're very easy additions to your system. Another good way to cleanse at this time of year is through juicing. So juicing, a lot of people don't have juicers, or a lot of people do have juicers as well, but keep them in their garage or in their storage room. So if you have one in your home, this is a good time of year to dust it off and bring it up to your kitchen and start to put it to use. If you don't have a juicer, you don't have to get one in order to be successful. But if you would like to get one, again, the health food stores carry them. Superstore carries them. The Champion juicer is a good one, just as an example. So basically, I talk about this in my book as well, but when you're juicing, the whole principle of a pure vegetable juice is that it gets pre-digested nutrients into your body. And if you're specifically using some of the leafy greens we've talked about and things like ginger and cilantro and parsley in your juices, you can really stimulate your liver quickly for detoxification. It also really allows you to feel lighter, refreshed at this time of year. So it is an option if you would like to do that. But when you do juice, two important principles. The first one is try to always juice organic vegetables because you don't want to be drinking a lot of pesticides, herbicides. That's not a nice cocktail to be drinking. And the other thing is that a lot of people juice, but they'll juice high glycemic vegetables like beets and carrots. And a lot of fruit. And why you don't want to do that is that has the potential to affect your insulin, your blood sugars, so it creates more stress in the system. So it's better to do predominantly green-based juices, maybe with a little carrot, maybe with a little beet, but not predominantly those high sugary vegetables. So I've just given a nice liver cleansing juice, which is celery, spinach, fennel, ginger, garlic, dandelion greens, and lemon. You know, you can do something as simple as ginger, celery, and apple and call that a cleanse, you know, a nice juicing cleanse. You can do many different things. And again, if you have a copy of my book, there is that juicing tip in my book that has many different juice recipes that you can tap into. If you don't want to juice but want to sort of take advantage, again, going to some place like Jugo Juice or Booster Juice or even Community Natural Foods, they juice there. Go buy a juice, and that's a really nice thing to do every so often in spring. Another potential through of detoxing and cleansing your body is with broths. And in my book, there is a tip called Healing Recipes, and all of these broths can be found in there. So the potassium broth, the chicken broth, the veal joint broth, and Beeler broth, these all help to restore the body, really help to support detoxification. And if you don't have these broths, if you don't know how to make them, you can even just Google Beeler broth or potassium broth online, and they'll show you how to do it. Chicken broth, you can always go buy at the Calgary Farmers Market at the Soup and Stock Ladies booth, and that's a good way to have it too. So again, it's just options, but I would say that if you're looking for a big cleanse, like an intense cleanse, instead of doing something like the Master Cleanse, you know, that cayenne lemon juice one, or instead of doing a complete fast, it's much nicer to support your body with a juice fast and a broth fast together. That would be a very nice way to support your system if you want. You can also just eat your spring diet, just eat the food, and supplement your diet with some broths or juices throughout the day. So as a snack, have a cup of chicken broth, or as we've seen in my options for breakfast, just having a little vegetable juice with your breakfast helps. So you can do it on its own or as just part of your overall diet. So we finally now get into the lifestyle of spring. So not only is it important to consider our diet change, that our food needs to change, but our lifestyle also needs to be adapted at every season. And spring is the time for clearing the past, healing the present, and planning for the future. And so we're looking for new daily routine. It's so important to get out of our winter rut. You know, so if you go to the gym and you've been doing the same exercise routine the whole fall and winter, it's time to change it up. You might even consider doing activity outside or getting back into something you really love to do, like dance, for example. But the whole thing is just you want new. Even if you walk to work, you know, change the route that you go there. Change your routine in regards to what foods you're choosing. It's important to stimulate the body at this time of year, and if you don't change your routine, you stay stagnant, and we want to move through stagnation right now. Yoga and stretching is also really wise to put in at this time of year, so if you've been thinking about doing a yoga class or if you know you like it and just haven't done it in a while, put it back in now because it really helps to not only detox the body, but think about all the time we spend sort of curled up on our couch in winter time, or bundled up in our jacket, sort of hunched over because we're so cold. So yoga really allows us to create expansiveness and openness again within the system. And it also allows us to be home with ourselves, so to speak. You know, it brings us back to ourselves, our soul, and I think it's an important practice. This is also a great time of year to get creative. You know, there's a lot of time of year when artists start writing their music again, when painters start to paint their pictures, writers start to write their stories. So there's something about creativity that starts to flourish as the weather gets nicer. So if you do have a creative spark, really nourish that at this time of year. And if maybe, again, think about taking a class or a course that might inspire you to really have this self-expression or have this creative flow going, because creative flow also allows you to prevent stagnation. It's an important piece. And if you so desire, meditation is also a good way to, a good thing to put in at this time of year, because it just allows you to, again, come centered to yourself and make very clear, concise decisions, which is important because this is the time of year where we typically talk about setting new goals for ourselves. And, when we sit in meditation, often our inner voice, our wisdom can come through. So spring is also the season of beginning and creating. It's a new start to everything. And I really encourage you to reflect and make a new plan for yourself. One of the questions you may want to ask is, what do you want to clear out in your environment and within yourself? What's no longer serving me? What would feel good if I got rid of? What am I holding on to that's no longer serving? So this is a time of year to think about getting rid of that stuff, lightening up the body, lightening up the soul. And as I said at the beginning, it's the time of year to really even clean your home, to cleanse ourselves. So I ask, what do you wish to see happen this year? And as it says here, begin to see yourself as healthy and vibrant and active in the life you wish. So if you were to take all these principles that I taught you tonight and thought, what would I love my body to feel like, to look like? What would I like my lifestyle, my routine to be like and look like at the end of the spring season? What would that be for you? And there is a little place in your notes here where you can actually write your new health or life plan. And I encourage you to do that. And to be honest with you as well, a lot of people make their New Year's resolutions in January. But the truth is that's not when nature's new year is. The new year is now. So this is the time of year to resolve, to resolute, to make new change. And remember that destruction cycle. January, we're still in the destruction phase. So we don't really achieve our resolutions. But now when we're in this rebuild cycle, this is the time of year to make new choice, make new decision, and go after these things that you so desire. So I encourage you just to take some time for yourself and write out some goals that you may have for yourself that you would like to accomplish by the end of the spring season. So finally, some wisdom for spring. Fill yourself with energy and inspiration to actualize your goals and really use your food to re-energize your body. That's so important. Food is our energy. It's our life force. It's our life spark. So all these spring foods that I taught you are really going to be the key piece that will help you to stimulate the system on all levels. Just like the flowers will start to blossom, let your dreams blossom at this time of year. Put the spring back in your step. We want lightness now. And again, all these principles I taught you will really help you to feel that. As you go into summer, you should feel so light, so rejuvenated, so cleansed. And that's a really exciting piece. And always remember, elimination equals illumination. So the more you eliminate, the more you detox, the more you clear what no longer serves you, the more you'll feel light. And when we feel light, that's when we feel our best. So those, my friends, are the principles of seasonal spring eating. Okay, well, I thank you all for joining. I really wish you happy, healthy, vibrant spring eating. And just really slowly implement the principles. Remember, you've got an entire season here. You've got 3 months to really put these principles in. So don't feel you have to do it all tomorrow. And remember, just the littlest changes, even if you just add 3 to 5 things of what I've talked about tonight, that's going to be so much more than what you're already doing now. So, every little thing counts. And so I encourage you to make a little change to get a big bang for your buck, so to speak. So really enjoy the season, embrace it. So be well, everybody, and it was a pleasure doing this with you. So thank you.